Just real quick, I'll introduce Amber and then Danny, and then we'll turn the time over to them. Amber graduated from BYU. She went to law school also at BYU and graduated. And Danny graduated, did his undergrad at BYU, and then went on to Roseman for dental school, and then also got an MS from Barry University. And so I think they come from very similar backgrounds as us, especially as it pertains to dentistry with Danny. And then to have the advice, I think, from an attorney is always good. So we appreciate having Amber also to talk. So with that, I'll turn the time over to them. And
yeah.
Great. Well, we will just kick this thing off. I'm going to share our screen so you can see them. Our cute PowerPoint.
All right, that's showing up.
Did you get it?
Okay, cool.
Okay. Well, have you ever felt overwhelmed by debt? Like you just wanted to bury your head in the sand and pretend it didn't exist and just pretend like that's not there. I know that's how we felt, especially right when we graduated. We graduated around the same time from dental school and law school. And we had a whopping $650,000 in student loans, and we did not have the first clue as to how to pay it off. We kept getting tons of conflicting advice from financial advisors and from different friends and from our schools. And we spent the last few years kind of narrowing down what works for us, what works best for people who are taking on these student loans while managing other debt and trying to meet other life goals and financial goals. And so we spent the last few years figuring that out and helping other people do the same. So we know that debt can feel really overwhelming and isolating, but we hope that after today, you will have some specific actionable items, things that you can do to help you manage your debt so that it doesn't manage you. Over the last few years, we have paid off together around $350,000 in student loans. And we use basically these 4 principles that I'm going to share with you later. And then we put those 4 principles into an app. It's a free app that you can use, and we'll share that with you today as well. I guess we kind of already had our introductions, but Danny's a dentist at Greenfield Family Dentistry. I do contracts and transaction work for dentists and some doctors. And then, of course, we run the first personal finance website, Deeply in Debt, and then the app called Payback.
Which I highly recommend you find an attorney to be your wife, because it has been a game. It's been amazing as far as buying a practice, being an associate. Amber's been a ginormous help to everything.
Well, thanks.
So
Anyways, those things that we've done have given us some fun opportunities. We've been able to be featured on places like NBC, CNBC, ABC, Yahoo Finance, just to share kind of our journey and these tips that we're going to share with you tonight. So I forgot to be managing the PowerPoint as well. A rhetorical question: if I was in person, I would ask you this question, and you would probably roll your eyes and tell me that you think debt is bad. So do you think debt is good or bad? Kind of a trick question, actually, because what debt is neutral. Debt is a neutral tool, just like any other tool, like a hammer, for example. It can be used to do very destructive things, or it can be used to do good things and put things together. I use a hammer as an example because we are in the middle of a house remodel and we're doing a lot of it ourselves. I, as we have discussed, am a lawyer. I'm not a handy person. Danny, all of you dentists and you hygienists are great with your hands, so you probably can't relate. But I was using a hammer and I was trying to chip off these tile baseboards. And I got the hammer and the pry bar just right, and I gouged this giant hole in our wall that Danny got to fix.
it was a big one.
So that was a bad use of a tool. A good use of the same hammer, we installed these luxury vinyl planks, and I softly tapped those things in, and they have turned out great so far. So that was a good use of a tool. But the point being that debt is like the hammer. It's neutral. It's just a tool. It can be used to do good things. It can be used to do bad things. Howard Fran, I said that right? The Dentaltown podcast guy you may be familiar with. On one of his podcasts, he talks about how dentists go through so much schooling, and it's true for hygiene as well. Go through all this schooling, we take on all this debt, and then suddenly you get out of school and debt becomes the scariest thing ever, and you're terrified of it. But there are ways to use it for good. So let's talk about those ways. Some good uses of debt would be any debt that is attached to an income producing asset is a good thing. So what I mean by that is, like, for example, purchasing a dental practice where you've done your due diligence, it looks like a good practice. You've seen the numbers, you've seen the production, you've met the staff. It's a good practice, and it's going to earn you more money than you might be making as an associate. But to get into that practice, you might be taking on a big loan from a bank that you don't want to be a part of, Bank of America, and it will give you a better income to pay off your student loans or to live the lifestyle that you want to live. Another example would be like purchasing a rental income property, like an Airbnb or a long-term rental, where you've seen a history that that rental income property is producing income and will be able to generate income for you to, again, pay off debt or meet other financial goals. Another example would be like your education. You went to dental school, you went to hygiene school. I'm sure with the idea in mind that this would give you a career that would, at a minimum, I mean, I'm sure you love being dentists and hygienists for the sake of doing it, but also like earning money is a good thing. Let's talk about bad uses of debt. So a bad use of debt is when you're buying things that are not attached to income producing assets. So that means like using a credit card to buy the new iPhone, using a credit card to buy clothes, using a credit card to furnish your house or whatever it might be when you don't have the actual money in a bank to take care of it. That would be it. Bad use of debt. I don't like using the words good and bad, but that's a bad. Okay, so just to recap, good debt. Good debt is attached to income producing assets. Bad debt is attached to things that don't produce more money. So when you're out buying all those new clothes, unless you're able to resell them for a better value, they're not producing income for you. So that's what we're going to call bad debt. So bad debt, we're going to get more into this in just a minute with Danny, but bad debt is the kind of debt that you typically want to avoid. And if you have it, it's the kind of debt that you want to pay off first and get rid of. So I guess with that in mind, I'll turn it over to you and you can use our 6 steps to get started.
Yeah. So once you've collected all this debt, first things first is outline your goals. These are business goals, work goals, along with all your personal goals, life aspirations, hopes and dreams and wishes. Where do you want to be? Where do you want to be in 5 years? Where do you want to be in 10? Do you want a house? Do you want a car? Do you want to be going on a certain amount of vacations per year? Do you not want any debt? What things are important to you? And then another thing is, if you do have a spouse, it's really important. And what we found really beneficial was we each separately made our own lists, and then you share those lists, because your spouse, you'll have certain crossovers, but it'll help you realize, oh, hey, look, Amber, I don't want to say needs, but she kind of needs to take vacation, lots of vacations every year. I don't need to so much, but it helps you understand so that your budget doesn't get forced on the other person and create a big divide in your relationship. So share your goals with your spouses. And next up, kind of a tough part is create a savings. Make sure you've got your rainy day fund. This last year has been eye-opening. I've always been a proponent of rainy day funds, thought they were important. We had one personally, we had one for the business. But even my business rainy day fund, it was for if I break my arm, or worst case, I shatter my wrist or fingers mountain biking or something, and I can't work for a while. Well, at least I can hire an associate, and my office will run, but I'll need some funds in there to make sure that it can last for a while. I never planned on the government being able to shut me down and making basically nothing for a month and a half. And so it make sure you have a rainy day fund. It's all the more important now as you can see kind of what the potential is out there.
Just to be clear, so what we're saying to do before you even start paying off debt is set those goals and then establish those 3 months of emergency savings before we're even talking about debt.
Yeah, and it might sound counterintuitive and it might be tough because all of a sudden you've got all this motivation to get your debt paid off, and then we're saying, yeah, before you touch that debt, go throw a bunch more money somewhere else. But in times like this, you need that so you can continue on the path, so that you can keep paying your debts off in the future. Whereas if you don't have that rainy day fund, how do you pay for life? Spending on your credit card, increasing, which the interest on those kind of things is crazy. And so if you can have that emergency fund long term, it'll help you pay off more debt. As far as how much of a rainy day fund, personal, in your family, personal life, I think Dave Ramsey kind of throws out $1,000 and then start paying off debt. For us, that wasn't enough for me to sleep well at night. We both kind of lean more towards around 5 months even of a rainy day fund, just to make sure that we're okay. And that's what I feel comfortable with. And with a lot of these, with savings and a couple of other things that I'm going to go over, in the end, it's what helps you sleep at night, what makes you comfortable. Being prepared, yes, and you might have to go a little bit and stretch yourself a little bit, but in the end, make sure that you're comfortable with your decisions. And so if, 2 months, you feel completely comfortable, okay, great. For me and Amber, we feel comfortable at 5. For my business account, pre-COVID, I had between 1 and 2 months of expenses saved up. With COVID, I moved it up 2 to 3 months. I was listening to the Dentist Advisor podcast the other day, and they were talking about how pre-COVID, they kind of saw dentists were saving 1 to 2 months, and post-COVID, they were starting to see a lot more dentists save up to 3, and some even saving more. When they started talking about those bigger numbers, though, they did seem kind of hesitant. You don't want too much money sitting there doing nothing for you, so don't create too big of a rainy day fund. But get that, set it aside. You can add to it later, and you will continue to put into savings, and we'll talk about that as you're paying your debt off. But get a solid rainy day fund for those super crazy emergencies set aside. And then next up, kind of figure out how you want to pay debt off. Couple examples here. We've got a debt avalanche, the snowball, and most bothersome. Basically, the debt avalanche is where you pay off. You list all your debts, and you're going to pay off the highest interest first. Long term, that's going to save you the most money. It might not be the most motivational, and that's where the debt snowball comes in. And the debt snowball method is where you've got all your debts listed out, and you pay the smallest debt off first. The reason you do that is because all of a sudden, you're able to do that quick because it's so small. And just like a snowball rolling down a hill, it's going to get bigger, 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 and bigger, and get more and more energy. As you pay those little debts off, all of a sudden it's like, oh, hey, look, I don't have that one anymore. Hey, look, that one's not following me anymore. Hey, that one's gone. And it keeps you going. We are doing the debt avalanche, and I'll be honest, it is tough because our high interest loans are my school loans, and they're huge, and there's no, hey, look, motivation kind of thing, because they're not close to being done.
We're halfway.
So, if you can do it that way, that would be ideal. though, if you just need that motivation, the debt snowball can be there too. Honestly, the most bothersome, that's what it sounds like. If there's one that just really irks you, that, hey, you know what? You didn't want to have school debt. You had to. You just want it gone. You want to forget about it. You want to forget that experience ever happened. Go ahead. Again, just like with savings amounts, this is what helps you sleep well at night.
I have a good example for most bothersome debt. So I had a friend in college get engaged and they broke off their engagement and his ex-fiance kept the ring and he had taken out a loan for the ring. And so he was paying off this ring for this girl who's no longer in his life. And so that debt really bothered him. It wasn't his highest interest debt. It wasn't the smallest balance debt, but it just bothered him. He wanted, like Danny said, to forget that existed. So he paid off the most bothersome first. So if you have a debt like that, that might be a good one for you.
And what debts do you have? Do you know what debts you have? Do you know all their sources? Do you know where they're coming from? Get it organized. We've got, through our blog, we've got a debt payoff starter kit that Amber's made up.
It's just basically an Excel sheet,
Yeah.
but it's kind of, it does like the steps for you of like starting the Excel sheet.
Yeah, which whatever makes this easiest, especially, this can be tedious. And so whatever just makes it easy, makes it something you'll actually do it that way. And other options, the Payback app that Amber briefly talked about. Right now it's just on iOS, but it's super awesome because it just lists out your debt. You can see the amount right there. It's on your phone. You just open the app and bam, it's right there, along with interest and terms and everything. You can kind of play with the terms even, or the interest rate, and see if you refinance, where you can take it. Awesome resource. Also, just make your own Excel sheet. Just, list them right there, one column, list the amounts in another, list the interest rates in another. If you're not a techie, use paper and a pen.
Do you have to be a techie to use an Excel sheet?
I don't know, but do whatever works for you, but have it written down. Have it somewhere where you can visually see your debt, the numbers, the sources, and everything like that. Here's an example using the debt avalanche method. You've got your credit cards, you've got specifically Chase credit card, you've got the amount, you've got the interest rate, you've got your loan servicer, school loan servicer amount, interest rates. Because that's what's going to let you kind of look at those and say, okay, hey, do I want to do that snowball method? Do I want to do the avalanche method? And what is my total loan amount? You might think, well, you're in school, especially, it's, this debt is, everyone's just doing it. And so you assume, it's nothing. I don't know. They just give me this check and I don't know, I'm in school and I pay for life somehow. And you don't pay too much attention to it. And then all of a sudden you look at it and you're like, we graduate. It's like, all right, we've got $650. Okay, that's real cool. That was trips to JCW's for lunch were a bit more expensive than $4 with interest. But list them out so you know where they're coming from and how much they are. And next up, to pay off those debts, you're going to need money. You need to know what your budget is. You need to know how much income you have. You need to know your expenses. Find your income from all sources. If you're just a W-2 employee, that's real straightforward and simple. It'll get more complex if you have properties or any side hustles or anything like that, but list those out, have those numbers, monthly numbers, so you know what's coming in each month. And then with your expenses, make sure you tally all of them up. And this is where it gets tricky, and a lot of people underestimate their expenses. It's kind of like, for anyone out there that's done any fitness plan, or if you super strict dieting or anything like that, where you're eating lots of chicken and rice and broccoli and things like that, and you think you're doing pretty good, and then here and there you have a little Hershey's Kiss or a mini Snickers or something, but you know what, you're doing everything else great, and after a month you look at it and say, hey, I should be doing better. And if you would have looked back and been real with yourself, you were downing an extra 500 calories of sugar every day that you just thought was so minimal it wasn't anything. what kind of expenses do we have like that? I think it's super easy these days with all the subscription services to, you really look at it and all of a sudden, whoa, you've got Hulu Plus, Netflix, HBO, your CBS has something. I don't know what other 10 streaming, all of a sudden you've got 10 streaming services, a handful of apps that are taking $4 or $5 a month from you. All those little things add up, and people have, those companies have made it so easy to just take auto, and you don't have to pay attention to it, that money coming out. So tally up all those expenses. Then once you've done that, specifically with all those subscriptions, is there a way that you can lower some of those? Do you really need all those subscriptions?
Do you need Netflix when it doesn't have The Office or Parks and Rec anymore?
Honestly, we dropped Netflix mainly for that reason. And Amber had been wanting to drop it forever anyway, because she didn't want to spend $10 a month. But yeah, so we dropped Netflix. Now we're just mooching off our brother and sister-in-laws for Hulu and Disney Plus. But look at those kind of things and figure out, where can you cut the fat? What can you get rid of? And be real with yourself. Do you need everything that you're spending money on? I would love a nice car. I really, really would. I hate driving my Toyota Matrix that had a big accident before I bought it and looks like garbage, but it's cheap. It gets me where I want, and debt's a higher priority for me. So I do it.
I was gonna say, we're talking about those little expenses adding up in your budget for sure, but also the big expenses, like not having a car payment on Danny's little Matrix has been like a huge blessing. Like it gives us the ability to put that money towards debt. So look at those bigger expenses, like your car. Like, do you need to drive a nice car? And do you need to live where you're living? Can you get a roommate? Or, I mean, maybe not. Can you live with family? Can you downsize to save money, to make paying off debt a priority? So little expenses are important for sure, but the big things really add up.
And when you're doing those expenses, if you're trying to get rid of debt fast, and as we talk, our world revolves a lot around student loan debt. That's kind of been our debt. We've added a practice loan and a house loan recently. But the same applies for credit cards and everything. Just as I go to right here, and you look at the extra debt payments, that's an awesome thing to do, and that should be included in your expenses. You look at the month and say, hey, I really want to get rid of this debt, whether it's the credit cards or the school loans. I want to be putting away double on those each month. Put that in those expenses. Savings. You should be saving. You made that rainy day fund, but do you have any future plans to ever retire? Are you going to work till you die? And just, general, future wants, goals, that list of goals. How are you going to fund those goals in the future? Not that you're putting tons of money in there when you're really getting on top of your debt, but those should be included in as well. And just a little side on savings. I was listening to or reading something from White Coat Investor, where they were talking about how they recommend you should save 20% of your gross income on savings. And again, you do what's comfortable, you do you, but at least do something so that you have those funds available to you in the future. And when you're looking at those expenses and your income, if it's real close, or if you're wanting to be able to make a double payment, but you can't, look at your options. Ask for a raise. It can't hurt. On our door leading out to our garage, our 5-year-old, well, our now super old 6-year-old, I was smashing up some tile in our demo. Our whole kitchen was tile, and taking that out. And he came up to me, and I had headphones and glasses. I could barely hear him. I had a couple masks on, and he came up, and I had to take all of it off to hear. And he's like, "Can I help?" And I was in the heat of it. I didn't want to. I just wanted to get it done. And I just kind of blew him off and said, "I don't know what you're saying. Go write it down or something," with the idea that he'd just go play. Not the greatest choice by me, but that's what I did because I was trying to get done. And then he came up to me like 5 minutes later, and he has this sign that he wrote down that says, "Can I do," spelled with 2 O's, "some," S-U-M, "smashin'," spelled like a kindergartner would spell it. And I was just so impressed that he went and actually wrote it down because I had told him to. That yeah, I let him do some smashing. So ask for a raise. If you feel like you've been doing a good job, where whether you're an associate or hygienist or staff in general, and you're it, that note that we have on our door is a reminder to me and Amber that it can't hurt to ask. You might get what you ask for.
And I think also for like
Dentists who are owners, getting patients to say yes to treatment that they need. Ask them to get their treatment done. Be more aggressive on that to the extent that it's like, you're not being a creepy weirdo doing bad dentistry, but like ask patients to get the treatment that they need, or just along the same line.
Yeah. Look for more hours, reduce your expenses. We kind of talked about side hustles. Amber's the queen of side hustles. She's always finding something in some way to some new angle to find some income, which, over time, those little bits add up to lots of bits. So finally, as you listed out that debt, because you listed it out, whether on the computer, an app, or a piece of paper, and you see those, especially those student loans, you can refinance those. And I guess this is kind of a weird time right now. If you're, and we could have a whole giant discussion on just student loans,
and we will have more discussion in a minute.
Yeah, and we'll talk about it more. But right now, if you're still have those government loans, you haven't made them private, just leave them there. They're not accruing interest. You don't have to pay anything until September. Leave them there. If you want to make those payments to just keep getting them down, go ahead. But don't worry about refinancing those right now. But if you've already refinanced, we've refinanced our school loans a couple of times. You just, hey, look, there's another interest rate. It's lower. Let's take it. And honestly, when you do that, some of the places want your business so much that they'll even throw in $200. They just, I don't know how it works, but they do that. And it's pretty nice. So look for those options. There's also, and these are kind of areas that they're options if you're going to do them smart. They can lead to digging yourself into a even more giant hole with credit cards, but there are such things as balance transfers or getting personal loans for credit card debt that can lower your interest rates. But don't do that with the expectation that, oh, hey, look, now my actual credit card's paid off and I can go max it out again. So I hesitate to even bring that up, but if you're going to do it responsibly, it can help you if you're just in a bind and you're not planning on throwing a bunch more money down on your credit card or something. Those could be options. Refinancing your mortgage, that's also something you can look into and can possibly save you a good chunk of change in the future too as well. And then I think that.
Okay, well now we're going to talk about the 4 principles I brought up at the beginning.
Sorry, if there are any questions or if anyone's had questions, type them in. We'll answer them at the end and things. Amber's going to get into some nitty gritty, heavy duty stuff here, but don't hesitate.
Yeah, so get excited. We're going to get very meaty with this stuff. So these are the 4 principles that we have personally used, and it's how we created our app based around these 4 principles. So I call them my debt smashing principles. The first one is you have to track your debt. So Danny brought up, you need to organize your debt. You need to list it from every source. You need to know what debt you even have. But in addition to that, you need to be tracking it. So when you're making payments and your balances are going down and or your interest is increasing and making your balance go up, you need to track that and be mindful of where you are with it. It's just like Danny brought up with the whole weight loss thing. It's just like if you were trying to lose weight, It's really hard to do that when you don't know what your weight is. If you're not like jumping on the scale or taking pictures or tracking it in some way. The same is true for debt. So you need to be tracking it. And I think it also helps you stay motivated to see your numbers going down or to see them not going down, and to kind of give yourself that kick in the behind to get going and do a little better. Okay. So then the next one kind of just touched on it with the whole refinancing, but we continually look for ways to save money on debt. So basically the two ways to do that are through refinancing and through making extra payments. So especially with student loans, especially if you have private student loans, you can refinance those. It doesn't cost anything to do that. In fact, as Jenny mentioned, they often give you bonuses. So we've gotten up to $1,000 for refinancing. It's not like a mortgage where you have to pay closing costs to refinance. You can do that a million times and it doesn't hurt you at all. So constantly looking for ways. Within the app, we have some debt calculators that you can use to help you discover ways to save money on your debt. So I think that's a big principle that you should pay attention to. The third one is accountability. So find someone, whether it's just yourself or your spouse, or take to social media, your sister, your brother, I don't care, anyone at all, to stay accountable with. Really helps you stay on top of paying off debt. So we check in with each other. We try to have weekly meetings. Sometimes it's not that often, but where we're tracking not just our debt and the progress we're having paying off debt, but also our expenses. Like, hey, what are you spending money on? Why did you buy this thing at Amazon or whatever, to help you stay accountable. So if you don't have anyone to share that with, you can just check in with yourself, like every Sunday or whatever, once a week, log into all your accounts and just see how you're doing. And then if you do want someone to stay accountable to, you can meet people in our app that has a social media function where you can see other people's, you can choose to share yours or not. You can keep yours private if you'd like, but you can see other people's debt balances. And so you can say, like, oh, I'm a dental hygienist. I'm making $70,000 a year. I have $100,000 in student loans. There's no one like me. It feels really isolating. But you can log on there and see, oh, this girl is also a dental hygienist. This guy is also a dental hygienist. He has $150,000 in student loans, and he's doing it. Having someone to see and to also be accountable to can really help your debt smashing journey. Make sure I covered everything there. Yeah, okay. So the last principle that's helped us is to celebrate milestones. So I remembered I graduated law school. We paid off my law school debt within 18 months, and we had worked really hard. We lived really frugally. It was like our first jobs right out of school. So we were really proud of ourselves that we had not just like gone crazy and spent money. And we were seeing all of our friends doing that. They were graduating and like buying nice cars and nice houses. And we're like, man, like this stinks. We're still living like students. Anyways, we worked really hard. I paid off my law school debt. And I remember submitting that last payment. And then it was just like, wah, wah, like no confetti. Nobody clapped for me. Like nobody cared, except for us. And so to take a moment to celebrate milestones like that, when you pay off one of your debts, or if you make a really big payment or something like that, do something small to celebrate. It doesn't have to be something spending money necessarily, although it can be if you budgeted for yourself in your room, whatever it is, celebrate those milestones. It really does help. Okay, so now this is where the rubber meets the road. These are questions that I get all the time in my inbox, whether it's about student loans or just debt. These are kind of my frequently asked questions for student loans and debt. Just quickly go through them, and then I have a slide for each one. But tell me if you're filling these too. Should I pay off student loans and debt and/or any other debt, or save for retirement? It's a tricky one. Should I pay off student loans or buy a dental practice? Should I pay off student loans and debt or invest? Should I pay off my student loans or debt or buy a house? Should I pay off student loans or choose a forgiveness plan? Should I seek out student loan forgiveness? That's a hot topic that gets very heated. What student loan plan should I choose? What on earth do I do with my student loans right now during the pandemic? So we're gonna just go through these
Quick side question. I've got a note saying low resources may affect audio. Jason, are we good on audio? Okay.
Good. Let's see. Okay, so first question here. Should I pay off my student loans or other debt or save for retirement? So this one, first things first, if you have high interest debt, especially credit card debt, you should get rid of that before you're aggressively saving for retirement. So that's the one like clear answer I can give you. If you have that debt, get rid of that first. After that, gets a little grayer. So if you have an employer who will match your retirement, you should definitely take advantage of that. That is free money that you will be missing out on if you don't max it out. So save the maximum for retirement in that case so your employer can match it and get money that you wouldn't have gotten otherwise. If you don't have an employer match, it's even more gray area. Because on one hand, if you could hurry and pay off your debt, you'll free up some cash flow in your budget to save for retirement, and you'll be saving money on interest that you would be accruing. But that being said, time in the market can be a really, really beneficial thing. So it's kind of a delicate balance. Age is a pretty big factor here. The closer you are to retirement age, the more I would recommend aggressively saving for retirement. I do think a coexisting approach is best. I would not say like wait until all of your debt is paid to save for retirement. Like please don't do that. I think doing a little bit of both, and as long as you're making sure your high interest debt is paid off, save for retirement for sure. Next question, should I pay off student loans or buy a dental practice? Well, we bought a dental practice with student loans in mind, so you can guess what I'm going to say. But I think if you want to own a dental practice, you should buy one. I don't think you need to pay off student loans first. Statistically speaking, you're much more likely to earn more money as a practice owner, so long as you've done your due diligence in buying the practice. So I'm not saying for sure become a practice owner and you'll be able to pay off student loans better. No, not at all. You need to do your due diligence, make sure you're seeing good numbers coming out of that office. It's a place you want to live. It's a place you can see yourself working and doing well. And I mean, you'll have an accountant and of course a lawyer helping you do all these things, but do that due diligence first and make sure it's a good practice that is going to generate enough income for you to pay off student loans. But I guess my short answer is that I think you should pay off your student loan and buy a dental practice. I think it can really help you pay off student loans or other debt even faster. Even though you are taking on more debt to do so, you're also increasing your income, ideally. Should I pay off student loans or invest? So kind of going along with retirement, it depends a lot on the kind of investment. If
GME, what?
GameStop, anyone? So if your buddy is coming to you and saying, hey, I've got this great idea, we're gonna sell this item in some way and it's gonna be amazing and we're gonna make so much money, but he can't show you, like, basically there's no due diligence, it's a brand new idea, it's a risky investment. I'm saying wait until you paid off your debt to like take those kind of risks. Not that you like can never take risks with your money, but like the time to do that is not when you're in the middle of paying off debt. So just wait until your big debts are paid off. And then if you want to be like crazy with your money, go for it. Otherwise, if you are really interested in investing, it's just like buying a dental practice. Do your due diligence, make sure it's an investment that's going to earn you money. An example would be like buying rental income property. Make sure the seller is showing you like, hey, we've had tenants in this property for the last 10 years. We've only missed, like X number of months on rental income. It's like a proven, like there's a history for it that we can see. So that it will give you more income, and like that more income can help you pay off debt even faster. So it's all about like how you're going about investing rather than just saying don't invest or do invest. Yeah, so we recently, I guess I could use this example from our own lives. We recently bought this house that we're remodeling. We got kind of a twofer because we're kind of out in the middle of nowhere on a county island, and so we've got a little bit of land, not a lot, but there was a double wide trailer that was not anchored down. So it's fairly new within the last 5 years. It's 3 beds, 2 baths, 1,800 square feet. Quite frankly, it's nicer than the place we just moved from to get into this house. And if we just rent it out for 8 to 10 nights a month on Airbnb, we're making $2,000 extra per month that we otherwise wouldn't be. So that was a huge factor in buying this house, was kind of the investment into this Airbnb property that we are sprucing up at the moment. So it's just highly dependent on your circumstances. Just avoid risky investments until after debt is paid off. Should I pay off student loans and debt or buy a house? Again, guess what I'm gonna say? We bought a house. So there's not always a clear answer here. Again, if you have high interest debt, work on that first. The biggest factor that's going to determine whether you're even able to buy a house is your debt to income ratio. So most lenders, they're not even going to give you a mortgage if your debt to income ratio is above 36%. I know some will go up to as high as 43%, but like, please don't do that. Even if they're willing to lend it to you, that's going to stretch you really hard. If your debt to income ratio, that just means the amount of debt you have versus the amount of income you have coming in. If that's really high, you can work on paying off your debts to get that down so that you can qualify for a mortgage, and not just qualify for one, but be comfortable in what you're spending on your mortgage. So you're not stretched too thin, so you can't make your debt payments and meet your other financial goals. You don't want to be house poor. Oh, I was going to share while we're on the subject, this question comes up a lot too. People want to know like what I think the housing market is going to do, because it's so crazy right now. And are we going to have a bubble like we had in 2008? A lot of my friends and people I know that are really into real estate, nobody thinks it's going to crash quite like 2008, but nobody has a crystal ball. Like, we don't know that for a fact. It's just that because people are leaving California and the West Coast, Oregon, in mass exodus because of fires and different reasons, they're able to come to states like Arizona, pay cash for a house. That's why there's like 20 offers on houses right now, and yours doesn't get accepted because someone else had a better offer and they can pay in cash. So I think we'll see a leveling out of the market. Like, I don't think we'll see like big jumps like we have in the past few years, but maybe not a dip. But again, nobody has a crystal ball, so we don't really know. I think the right time to buy a house is when it feels right for you and your family, when you can afford the payment, when your debt to income ratio is where it needs to be, below that 36%. That's the right time to buy a house. And I wouldn't time the market for it. You might do that with other investments, but if it's the house you're going to live in, that should be your worst investment. Should I pay off student loans or choose a student loan forgiveness plan? I laugh because on my social media, people are very passionate about this and get very upset on opposite sides. In general, I'm for doing the thing that saves you the most money. And that's going to be different for pretty much every person, because we all have different incomes. We all have different levels of debt. There is a calculator. I'm hoping I'll get with Annette at the end of this, and I can send you this calculator that will help you figure out which plan, whether it's a forgiveness plan or a standard plan or even refinancing with a private lender, what thing is going to save you the most money based on some factors you'll enter in, such as your income and your debt. So there's calculators for this, luckily. But in general, I think I support whatever is going to be the best for you financially. If you are working for a nonprofit, if we were meeting in person, I would ask if any of you are. I think it's unlikely that many of you are actually working for a qualifying nonprofit employer, but if you are, I think public service loan forgiveness is great, so long as you can, first of all, your employer qualified, and second of all, you are meticulous, like beyond meticulous with your paperwork. I know FedLoan, who was servicing those loans for public service loan forgiveness, really messed up for a lot of people, and a lot of people are not getting forgiveness, haven't gotten it yet when they were supposed to a couple years ago, even though they were banking on it. They're banking on this 10-year forgiveness program and are having to either start over or they've missed out on a few years of that. So if you fall under that for public service loan forgiveness, just be meticulous with your paperwork. Feel free to reach out to me. I'll provide you my email at the end of this, but and I can kind of let you know specifically what you need. But same is true also for any of the other the forgiveness programs that are like 20 to 25 years, such as pay as you earn, repay. It's a personal decision. For those ones who are going to need to save up for the tax bomb that you will get, so you'll be taxed on whatever balance is forgiven. You'll be taxed on that as if it was your income. So you do need to save up for that. So you need to make sure that between saving up for that tax bomb and whatever your monthly payment is still less than you'd be paying on your own to just get rid of it faster. What I don't like, I will say this as a lawyer, what I don't like about any of those programs is that the terms can change on you. So you graduated 10 years ago and you're banking on forgiveness and you work really hard for 20 years and you make your minimum payments and you've saved up for this tax bomb, like depending on who the president is or who we have in Congress, a year before you could qualify for forgiveness, like that could change. I don't think it's likely to happen, but like the things that you sign when you choose those programs are basically like, we can change the terms on you anytime. And I just, as a lawyer, really don't like that. I don't think it's likely to happen, like I said, but the fact that it can, it just makes me nervous. I want you to be risk averse. I want you to not get in a bind in that way. So let's don't hesitation with those things. But just know what you're getting into. And like I said, save up for that tax bomb. And I will send out that calculator. There's also, I have a good friend, he runs a website called the Student Loan Planner. He does individual consultations. And that can help you know what forgiveness plan's right for you. If after you've done your own kind of research and you can't decide what's best and you've looked at the calculators and you just feel confused, we used him starting out and he helped us. We actually are saving about 200 grand on our student loans based on some of his advice. So he's wonderful. I can give you my referral link to him as well. So I kind of touched on this, but which student loan repayment plan should I choose? Again, super personal question. It really depends on a lot of factors. I'll give you kind of the rundown on each of them. So the standard plan means you're making just whatever payment helps you pay off your debt within 10 years. And so they're going to calculate that for you if you have federal loans. These are all assuming federal loans. And you just make your payment, end of 10 years, student loans are gone. Public service loan forgiveness, like I said, if you're working for a qualifying employer, it's forgiven after 10 years. There's no tax bomb, so you don't have to save up for it. It's just 10% of your discretionary income. Repay is if you don't qualify for pay, which is pay is a little bit better. So if you do qualify for that, that's what you should sign up for. If you are single, that's a good one. Both these, repay and pay, they subsidize your interest for the first 3 years. So we were on repay because we did not qualify for pay as you earn when we started out, and we were enjoying a nice interest subsidy. 50% of our interest was paid for. So we had 7.9% interest when we graduated, and so we were getting, closer to 4% with that subsidy. After that period, we refinanced and now have a lower interest rate. So there's a lot of different strategies you can use, and that's why I say look at these calculators, talk to the student loan planner, email me. I'm so happy to help any way I can, especially if you've been here tonight and you have questions that we're not going over. I'm just realizing we're kind of running out of time. I need to talk fast. But you can email me. I am so happy to chat about any of this. Okay, what to do with your federal student loans right now during the pandemic. So lots of crazy things going on. The CARES Act, you're getting 0% interest, no matter what your situation is. If you have federal loans, you're getting 0% interest right now. No payments are due. They're not collecting on default judgments, and that's going through the end of September. So the speculation is that they are not going to extend it after September, and that's why they pushed it out so far through the end of September, so to give people time to plan, like, I'm going to resume payments this day, and you can kind of get your affairs in order to resume those payments. So just as a heads up, that probably is when it probably won't be like we keep finding out like a month before our payments are going to be due. Oh no, they're not. Yay! That probably won't happen again. So that gives you a solid 8 months to figure out what you want to do, and this is what you should do. If you have other debt besides student loans, work on paying that off first. Even if otherwise your student loans are your highest interest, right now they're 0%. So pay off your other debt first. Another thing you can do is keep making payments on those student loans as if they were still being required to have payments due, because the time is still passing. It's just adding on time to the end of your loans right now. So if you can keep making payments, you'll be out of debt obviously faster. You can also just save the money that you would have spent on your student loans, put it in a savings account. And then my personal favorite thing that I think you should do is to open a high yield savings account. So a lot of these will earn like 1% interest, and you lump, so every month you just keep making that payment, but put it in this high yield savings account. And then in October, when your payment is due, you'll have this nice chunk of cash that's been earning 1% interest over, you know, this whole year basically. And then you can make a big lump payment when it's due in October. And that way you basically have like earned money for doing nothing to be able to pay off more debt. Change gears really quick as we're kind of winding things up here. I just wanted to give you like, what the heck do I do? Like, we gave you the 6 principles we talked about before. We gave you the 4 principles that we used. Now, like, what do I do when I get paid? Like, how do I go about navigating all of this? So this is kind of the order that we do things. So we pay ourselves and any charitable giving first. We automate this, and I'll go through that here in a minute, but we automate any payments that we can, and especially the paying yourself first. Automate that. Like, make your checking account, put a certain amount to savings every single month. You don't have to think about it. You don't even notice it's gone because it hits your savings account before you even look, ideally. I also recommend, there's plenty of research that shows, like, if you're willing to give money, for whatever reason, like, there's not great science behind it, but research does show when you give money away, it comes back to you. And I believe that. I buy into that. So if you're going to be a charitable giver, that's the time to do it, in my opinion, is the beginning of the month. After that, that's when you make your debt payments. So including your extra debt payments. So you make your minimum payment and your extra one before you even pay your bills. I found that if you don't do that, you'll have 100 million excuses to not make those extra debt payments. You'll find a new bed you want to buy, not that that happened to me this month, or you'll find you have new clothes, or whatever excuse that you can think of will come up, and you won't make the extra debt payment. So do that first, then pay your bills. And if you happen to have extra at the end of the month, pay more to debt. After you pay off debt, put it in savings or do an investment of some kind. So that's kind of the order that we do things. I hope this has given you some ideas so you can manage debt. It's not managing you. I know it can feel like you're being drugged behind like the end of, I don't know, it kind of reminds me of like wakeboarding. If you were to fall and like hold onto the rope still and you're just being dragged, it kind of feels like that. I don't want that. I want you to be the driver of the boat. Manage your debt so it doesn't manage you. And we're kind of, I mean, we're running low on time, but if there's a few questions, maybe we can answer those. We'd be happy to.
Yeah, if there's questions, you can come on mute and ask if we have any. If not, I'll check chat.
Come on, people, speak up.
And I did just want to add too, though, that as we've kind of gone on this whole path of paying debt off, I grew up in a house where my parents were super averse to risk and debt. You get, you know, house debt, a car debt if it's your only car, and school debt if you need to, and nothing else. And so for me, debt was always terrible. And when I graduated dental school, it was, yes, get rid of this debt. I want it gone. I don't want to take any other debt on until this is gone. And it took time, but over time I kind of realized, you know what, like Amber talked about, yeah, debt's a tool. You know, it can be bad, but it can also be good and propel you to a better future. And so, you know, as you're going through things, be open to new ideas and changing things up a little bit, and don't just sit and stick with what you decided initially, because if we did that, I'd be sitting as an associate making someone else money in Oklahoma still. So Uh,
I think what's really uniquely special about you guys is you're on the same page. Did you guys, were there any, did you have any challenges in getting yourself to be on the same page regarding, your debt and your savings plans?
yeah, for sure. Amber gets gift cards for Christmas, from people and her birthday, and keeps them and doesn't do anything with them. And then when it's someone else's birthday, that's the money she uses to buy them presents. And it's frugal. And I spend it the day after.
We have very different spending styles. And so it's definitely been, and it still is,
Yeah.
a learning curve. And that's why I think the checking in with your spouse is so important. You can't expect, no couple is gonna, whether it's your spouse or your partner, if you share money with anyone, you're never gonna be on the same page, just because you'll have different visions of what you want to do with your money and what your goals are, and your justifications for why you want to spend things. But I think those check-ins really help. And going back to like your goal setting, like you might need to review your goals together, and being really open with communication, like, hey, like you can't just go out and do this. But also, one thing I learned, because Danny is kind of more of a spender, the more like leeway, like if I'm not just like grinding on him all the time about how he can't spend money, but I'm more open and I recognize that he needs like room in the budget to do his thing. I need room in the budget to do my thing. So coming from a point of understanding, I think has really helped, giving each other like wiggle room, because it's not going to be your perfect idea. It's not going to be their perfect idea. It's like your idea together if you're sharing money.
Well, and with that, yeah, I need a couple extra dollars a month to just, otherwise I just feel claustrophobic and like, I'm still being forced to live like a student. And yeah, Amber's frugal, but at the same time, when we wrote down, we each made those goals like I talked about, one of the things Amber said was she wants to go on vacations every year. And so while she is frugal, I know that she also wants to be saving up money for solid vacations throughout the year. And so being on, I'm aware of that need and she's aware of my need, and we're managing to meld those together. So
That was a good question. That's a really hard thing.
Yeah.
Okay, so we have a question from Katie. I'll read it to you guys and then you can answer it. It says, I'm planning on going to dental school and I'm still working on my undergrad. Did you need to take loans out for your undergrad as well as dental school, or did you try and avoid taking out loans for your undergrad to help keep your debt accumulation as low as possible? Thank you.
Awesome question. Amber worked her way through undergrad and managed to fund it and took out some loans. I was fortunate up until we got married. My parents helped with me, but then once we got married, we took out some loans. Pell Grants were awesome. I don't know if that's easier to get while you're married or if, okay. But if you can get Pell Grants, that's just money you have to pay back.
But don't get married just to get a Pell Grant. We basically got through our undergrads with no debt. We had like maybe $2,000 of debt. And then yes, most of it came from afterwards. If you can do anything while you're in school, whether it's undergrad or dental school, to minimize your debt burden, you are going to thank yourself when you are in our position. So I think anything you can do to save money, whether it's going to like a community college or getting scholarships or working, really, really helps.
And Amber's job was awesome through a lot of school. We were married anyway. She was a research assistant for one of her professors, and that just made it easy. She was already on campus. She'd do that. She did it at home. I even got tied into it, and I got some hours doing it. But if you can find a job that lets you still get the good grades that you need for dental school, that'll help too.
For sure.
And if you have any questions like that and getting into dental school, I'm always open for questions or shadowing, things like that. So you can always hit me up.
So I noticed when I became a business owner, I didn't have the benefit of an insurance plan through an employer. and I'm finding that to be very expensive. I was wondering if there was any ideas or tips on how you might go about finding and then funding a private insurance plan.
We recently, well, I guess within the last year and a half, is that?
Are you
Or,
sorry.
well, I guess for the business and your employees, or for yourself?
For a personal, we just had a baby and found out that we didn't have maternity coverage in our plan.
Oh, we're talking health insurance. Okay.
Yeah,
Health
health
insurance
insurance. Sorry.
We
And
so-
it was, the fees were incredible to pay that. Obviously, as a business owner, I've looked into funding a group plan, but that's also significantly expensive.
Right.
So
Yeah. What we have chosen to do at the moment, we actually use a health share ministry. If you haven't heard of those, it's kind of like what you want health insurance to be, but it's not. So you pay in every month a certain amount, and then when you have a need arise, you pay a certain amount of it, they pay a certain amount of it. We just had twins. I had an emergency C-section, as well as a regular delivery. We paid $300 for like our entire hospital stay. I was there for 9 days, I think. We love our health share ministry. So we've gone that route. I haven't found a cheap way, and I don't think it's going to get any cheaper for the next 4 to 8 years. So we haven't found a cheap way to do health insurance, but we just opted for a health share ministry, and it's worked well for us. If you have any other specific questions about it, you can for sure email me. But we've really enjoyed ours.
Yeah.
We use Samaritan. There's a few out there. Liberty, Christian Health, and Samaritan are kind of the 3 big ones, but there's a lot out there.
thank you.
Yeah, do your research. Just, initially when Amber started looking into it, it was like, oh no, that's some weird, like multi-level marketing health insurance or something weird, but no, it when the twins came, it worked. And it's kind of neat because we actually get, the way you pay into it to a certain extent is you write a check to someone else. And so we've gotten checks from people that know that they're writing a check because we had twins, and they'll even say, oh, congrats on the twins or something. And
It's like
anyway.
pen pals for health
Yeah.
sharing.
So,
Are you seeing any other questions pop up?
No, I was just waiting a sec.
Okay.
But
These are, I have listed up here, our contact info and other resources that we talked about tonight. So if you do think of a question, you can email either of us. We're happy to answer it if we can, or find someone that can help you if we can't. And then our website and app is there too.
yeah, well, thank you very much, Danny and Amber. Just for those that are on, remember, if you have not sent through chat your name, so we know who was on for CE, so that Annette can distribute that we greatly appreciate that. And then, and a reminder, March 25th will be our next seminar. We'll get information out on that. So if there's anything else, I think that's it.
cool. It's been fun.
Yeah,
Thanks everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
You are welcome. I'll go ahead.
Amber, do you want to send me information? Do you want me to get out to everybody else?
Yeah, that'd be great. Yeah, I'll just shoot you an email.
Okay, that'd be great. And if I can get an outline of your seminar tonight, just to outline even, just so I have it for CE, I have to prove that we did it. So I have to keep that on file. So if you don't mind sending something like that to me, that'd be super great too. So this was really great tonight. Really good. Thank you so much. You guys did a great job. Good team for one, but also what your information is really great. That was way fun. So
Good. Okay.
thank you very much. We have about 67 people that came tonight.
Great.
Yeah. So that's really good. That's really good. So some of them I don't know. They still didn't put their name in the chat. So I'm like, I don't know who to send CE to. If you don't tell me, I can't get you CE. So That's great. So how old are your twins now?
8 months.
Oh, really? Oh, my daughter has twin boys. So
Oh,
they're pretty good.
fun. Twins are
And they're
so
4.
fun.
They're 4 and 4.5
Okay,
now.
maybe
So
they're not as fun anymore.
oh god, yeah, it's still great. It's crazy, but it's so wonderful at the same time. So do you guys have other kids as well?
Just the one 6-year-old.
6-year-old.
So the
Fun.
3 of them.
That's awesome. That's way great. Too fun. Well, I'll watch for your email then. And thanks again for tonight. I really appreciate it. And great people saying a lot. Thank you a lot. I don't know if you've seen in the chat, but a lot of people are saying thank you and great job and all that good stuff. So thank you.
Yeah, no.
Anything else you need from me at all? Nope. Okay.
Nope.
Awesome.
If you've noticed, I did go ahead and record your presentation tonight. So I don't know if you mind if we share that with anybody that wasn't able to come and participate, or.
Oh, that's fine.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, we had a couple of people that was texting me and then also emailed me, and they were having a hard time getting on. And another one said, "Darn, I'm late to it." So I've had a couple of people that have reached out already and said, "We wanted to do it so badly." So if that's okay with you, I'll just forward it on to him.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay. So Jill, thank you very much.
Yeah. I hope everyone was able to get something. It's tough when you've got a super young crowd, but then you've also got, dentists that have been out for a long time. And like we were talking about before it all started, debt loads are completely different coming out of school now than they were even just 5-10 years ago. So
yeah, crazy.
But,
do you guys have an opinion about, I thought there was a time when Dave Ramsey was actually saying, I wouldn't send my kids to dental school because of the education. You guys have an opinion about that?
I think if it's something, do it because you enjoy it or it sounds fun to you, but don't just do it because.
Like, there's probably a better way to spend $600,000. But at the same time, it provides you opportunities, like you wouldn't get otherwise. And like, I can't speak for Vinny, but he seems to enjoy being a dentist. He earns a good living.
I mean, and that's the thing is that, it's fun. I enjoy it. It's a pretty secure job, at least pre-COVID it was. I mean, COVID shut us down, but but at the same time, you look at, your buddies that you graduated undergrad with that, man, 4 years after they were done, they're in a nice house, they've got cars and they're settled in, and you're still living like a student for the next, who knows how long, trying to pay your debt off. So I'll encourage my son, and I talked to him about dentistry and he asks me weird questions about it and stuff, but and I'll encourage it, but I'll also make sure that he's aware that, hey, even college isn't the only path that exists these days. And I'm not, there's options out there, but I definitely like it, and I'd, give it a good word. What about you? Would you tell someone to do it? Or even jumping and adding a few more years to go endo?
I would. I would if you're passionate about it. I feel the same way. You love doing it, but the more you can keep the cost of school down, it's just amazing what undergrad costs, now.
And that's, and that is one thing that I'd say is, go to a cheap undergrad. Just, it'll probably be easier to get good grades, so you'll get into dental school easier. And, to a certain extent, the dental school wants to know what undergrad school you went to, but, you get a 4.0 and it's going to look like a 4.0. So, but then, schools, it's only getting more expensive as the government throws out more options to repay. I mean, when we first got out of school and I was on repay, so it was, 10% of your discretionary income is what the monthly was. mean, my first year out of school, my payment was $0. I mean, that's, you know, you tell kids, hey, look, you can go to dental school and then pay nothing for your first year, and then maybe pay $100 your second year per month. That doesn't sound bad at all. Yeah, sure, I'll take on $600,000 of debt. You know, yeah, there's some weird tax bomb at the end, but like everyone else, I'll just treat it like it doesn't exist. And that, I mean, that was hard too, is you look at everyone that you graduated with, and that when, you know, those that did stick with those income-based programs, yeah, because they were only spending $200 a month on loans, they were buying a nice house and a nice car and living well. But I don't know, to each their own.